Through the all the licensing and the categories, where especially Europe, it's quite restrictive. As Samir explained, the US has simplified the process quite a lot when compared to Europe. I think Australia is also quite restrictive on the categories to fly a drone and on the licensing. Um, Closer to Europe, if I'm not mistaken, from what we have spoken in the past. Um, and of course,
it's not in Australia, it's not as difficult as it is in Europe, but the course itself is pretty extensive, and you also need a radio license, REOC or something like that. Yeah, it's Europe is definitely on top when it comes to restrictions and regulations.
Yeah, and that brings us also to the environmental and the chemical spraying regulations that we have spoken about, where, for example, if you go to the UK is one thing, that now that they are outside of the European Union, but here in the European Union, you have like the national level or the federal level, like in the US, and then each country has its own specific legislation. And even in some regions of some countries, they have stricter regulations than others. I'm remembering of, for example, Germany, where from one region to the other, the legislation has variations, especially with the Water Protection Act that they have. So everything connected to do you need to collect the runoff from the cleaning? Do you need to block storm drains and all that? So when thinking about drone cleaning and starting your business, inform yourself of the legislation, because the fines are hefty. They can close your business with the fines, and one time. They just need one time and you are out of business. Similar to the US, when the fines come, they are usually hefty. Here in Europe, it's also the same, and especially if you are planning to work in several countries, you need to check the legislation country by country, because it changes. There is a common ground at the European Union level, but then each country has their own legislation that you need to comply with. Especially, for example, France usually is quite restrictive. Yeah.
That's difficulty from Europe. We have different countries. So we basically have Europe that says you can do it X, Y, Z. And then Europe says, but you as a country can make those rules even more strict. So then you have these weird cases that you can spray something in France in a vineyard, but you can't do that in Belgium. And in Germany, it's forbidden. And in Holland, it's strictly forbidden. We have... You can drive 2 hours and you speak a different language. That's also another barrier. But when it comes to the use of chemicals, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. When I see my colleagues in France doing roof cleaning, I'm not going to name the product, but 90% of them use the same product all the time. That product I can't purchase in Belgium because it's on the forbidden list. But over there, they spray it. So do your research, especially in Europe.
Yeah, and outside the European Union, it's a whole different game. Because it can be easier. Like the UK is more lenient on the chemicals that you can spray than Europe, for example. It's easier for them.
So speaking from the US, it's kind of funny because I really starting to sound like we're like the Wild West over here. But it's kind of do whatever you want, right? So things are changing. People are noticing what's happening. The FAA has been kind of sitting back and watching what last 2 years. I know for a fact they're paying a lot more attention next year. I know for a fact people are talking about spraying bleach now. So people are like, we've been doing it because no one's brought it up, and now people are starting to notice. So they're like, wait, should we be doing this? And now in Florida, I just found this out. In certain cities, you can't spray bleach over 100 feet in the air. So now, what do we do? Because that's our, we work up to about 180 feet, about 190 feet is what my setup can kind of go to legally, about 180 or so. But now it's just, there's a lot of talk and rumors. So I got a feeling things are going to start changing here in the U.S., especially with the NDAA, the National Defense Aviation Act, the whole supply chain thing with China and all of that. So there's going to be a lot of change next year. We're really not sure how it's going to play out. So we're kind of, like, I know people are buying DJI drones to grandfather them in for their businesses, because after December 23rd, we don't know what's going to happen. I thought about doing it myself. I wanted the new Mavic 4 Pro, but I'm like, I don't like, because I think after December 23rd, we can't even buy DJI. Right now, at least you can buy DJI. You just can't get the warranty or anything. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now because of the National Defense Aviation Act. And then on top of that, the bleach thing. So hospitals are already kind of a no-go with the bleach. And certain property managers are starting to catch on. So they're starting to ask, hey, do you spray bleach? And I tell them, yeah, of course. And I'm like, I can look into alternative cleaning products. Now, this is usually where the conversation stops here in America is, all right, cool. I just want to let you know, bleach is about $3 a gallon for me, $3.50. And that other stuff you want me to use is going to be $60 a gallon. Just let you know that. So that cost is going to be to you. I'm not taking a 50x, or 20x price increase. So it's starting to happen. So a few of us, like me and a few other guys that I know, man, we are looking for a bleach alternative. And it's like we find stuff and it kind of works, because the thing with bleach is it's instant, right? When you're leaving the job site, it's clean. And that's what property managers, building owners, that's what they want. They want it clean before you leave. They don't want a promise of, I promise you in 2 months it's going to look better. So
we know the feeling.
Yeah. And so what we're doing now with the bleach is, and I mentioned this to Kim before, is from now on, I don't spray bleach unless it's got a scent masker in it, which also acts as a surfactant. And so when I'm spraying bleach, all they're going to smell is apples. They're going to come out and smell apples. That's what they're going to smell. And so, or lemon or whatever, because I don't want that question brought up. Even though I legally can spray it, there are discussions and talks starting to happen. So we'll see what happens next year as far as either more restrictions on drones in general, and if things are going to get a little more restrictive, but they're probably going to be local. But let's face it, with our current president and our current administration, the Environmental Protective Agency is kind of a joke at this point. So we don't really know what's going to happen. We don't know from an enforcement standpoint who's going to enforce it if that agency's been gutted. So like there's a lot of uncertainty right now. So guys are just doing it because no one's telling us we can't right now. So
I'm checking a few questions here myself, Bruno. I write them down, so I'll leave the word to you.
Okay. Yeah, I think, and that's speaking about bleach, and we have a full topic on bleach further ahead. Is I don't think there is an alternative, a direct alternative to bleach currently available, so to speak. But we can go into it later on.